Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. It's a pleasure and an honor. My name is Gustavo Serafini. I am one of the co-founders of Pure Audio Video. We are custom integrators down in South Florida. And for the last 15 years, we have been heavily involved with cutting edge home automation systems, home entertainment systems, lighting and shade control, and just almost all the technology that goes into the home these days. Alex from Josh AI will not be joining us today for this presentation, but we do have some really cool videos to share. And I also really want to thank Alex and Josh AI for supporting this and helping out with the slides. So I want to talk real quick, kind of the two overarching themes of this talk. Number one is that home automation has an incredible ability to be used as an assistive technology. And we'll get into why, and we're going to use Josh AI as a case study for that. The second big point is that oftentimes assistive technology is very limited in its scope when designing products. And even though that is important and has a place, I want to bring a universal design perspective into assistive technology that will show that when we do design products for a wider range of abilities and people, where we're just factoring in a wider gamut of human beings, we end up with the possibility of creating products that work really well for the disability community or for the aging in place population, as well as people who are non-disabled. So let's get into what is home automation. See 3 points here on the screen. And the first one can be easily explained as follows. So right now, when you think of the systems in your home, you have your electronics, your TVs, your cable boxes, your Apple TVs, you have your pool, you have your air conditioning, you have your alarm system, et cetera. All of these systems are usually controlled by individual apps. So a home automation system is centralizing all of that functionality into one application or one user interface. Home automation has a big convenience factor, which is the ability to automate and schedule tasks. An example of that is a good night scene where you want all the lights in your house to go off except in your master bedroom, and you want all the TVs in the house to go off as well, and you want to play some soft, soothing music to help you sleep and turn on your alarm system. You can automate and schedule those things through an automation system. Last but not least is customization. So a lot of the mass market home automation manufacturers, say Google and Apple, they lack the customization features of the more specialty automation systems like Crestron, Savant, Control4, and Josh AI. The customization does two things. It allows us to better tailor the experience for the clients, and it also gives us a wider range of products that we can integrate and talk to, again, to simplify the experience. So assistive technology was defined by the Technology Assistance for Individuals Act of 1988. And as you see, it's basically any product that's used to improve, maintain, or increase the capabilities of people with a disability. Some common examples of that would be wheelchairs, prosthetics, braces. There's been three challenges with assistive technology so far, and this is according to a book called Universal Design, Creating Inclusive Environments by Steinfeld and Maisel. Great book. I highly recommend that everybody read it. So there are three problems. Let's deal with abandonment and technical lag. So if a product isn't designed well, it ends up staying on the shelf. When I was young, I was born with one arm, and I did have a prosthetic for my arm. It was heavy, it was cumbersome, it got in the way, and I always ended up taking it off and then eventually just abandoning it. Technical lag happens because oftentimes the assistive technology developers don't have access to the same resources, big enough development team. And so you often see assistive technology coming out that's behind the technology curve. The third problem is an interesting one, which is knowledge translation. So oftentimes the assistive technology developers and the more mass market or mainstream developers don't communicate. They don't share knowledge. They're designing for different purposes. The assistive technology developers are usually designing for something for a very specific problem. And when we bring universal design lens into it, it helps broaden the perspective when designing products. The first principle that's interesting is that a lot of people are going to develop performance limitations over time. And we've all experienced this with aging. We lose some physical abilities. We lose our hearing over time, memory, dexterity, mobility. All of these things happen as a natural course over time to our bodies. And when we design with this perspective in mind, it's going to include more people. Second thing about universal design is that it promotes participation, integration, and independence. So people usually think of universal design as it relates to physical spaces, whether commercial or residential. It also relates to product development. A better designed product promotes people with wider abilities to live more independently. This is a key principle, and this allows good developers to be able to account for a wider group of people when they're designing their products. Let's look at some basic features that we already talked about with the home automation system, and we can already start to draw some of those connections, right? A good automation system makes everything in the home, all the systems that it's controlling, easier to use. You don't have to physically go over and roll down your drapes, turn off your lights, walk up to the TV and hit the power button. It's at the touch of a button, or in the case of Josh AI, voice. There's also more security available. So again, you don't have to go to your front door and look through a little peephole that's probably too tall for somebody in a wheelchair. You can go onto your phone or an iPad or a computer, see who's at the door and talk to them. So let's get into who is Josh AI now as we dive into this case study. Who are they? What are they about? What are they trying to change? Josh AI was started by Tim and Alex. They are very successful tech innovators, and they were searching for a more intuitive, easier to use, accessible system for a wider group of people. So they wanted to redefine. A lot of people are scared of technology. They're intimidated by it. You hear it from clients all the time, like, I don't want to push a button and have the whole system get messed up. Or, I push this button on my computer downloading a file and now I have a virus. So they wanted to make technology more accessible and easier to use for more people, something that you could actually enjoy, participate in, and experience in the home rather than something difficult to use and specialized. Josh AI is a voice platform. So there are multiple ways to use the application, but their key differentiating factor is natural voice integration. Natural voice integration, as we're going to see later on, means that you can talk to Josh much closer to how you talk to a person in real life. It doesn't require a specific set of commands or a specific set of words in a specific order. It's speak to it naturally. It's going to learn over time what you mean by those things. The other thing is there's multiple ways to use it. It's not just voice. There's an application on your phones, your tablets, your computer. You can even text message the Josh system if you don't want to use voice. And this is unique. Again, no automation system that I am aware of lets you interface with it in these multiple ways. Here's an introduction to Josh. Welcome to this video, and you will hear from Alex now for a couple minutes.
When we started Josh AI, the goal was to reimagine what the home could be. We envisioned voice to be the next great interface, and that technology should be invisible. More so, we designed Josh with the idea that the home is a safe place where privacy is paramount. Now, 4 years later, Josh is powering some of the most impressive and secure real estate in the world. We've realized the same opportunities in the home extend to new areas like hospitality and commercial spaces. As Josh continues to grow, we're redefining everything from energy management to health and wellness. Check it out.
Okay, Josh, would you turn on the lights in the living room, dining room, and kitchen? Put on my favorite down-tempo playlist. And let's watch Black Mirror.
You got it, mate.
Is that easy?
Okay, so what did we see there?
When we started,
We saw a system that was built on voice, where we have the ability to speak naturally to it, give the system complex commands, and it just responds. So for example, in this slide here, to say, dim the lights, listen to Billy Joel, and set the shades to 70%. With other voice platforms, you can't issue those commands like that the way you would if you were talking to somebody or asking somebody to do something for you. The system is capable of recognizing all of these different commands, which just makes it easier to use. Voice really solves 3 problems for automation systems and for the users. It's easier to use, it enables wider abilities, and as we'll see, it has room awareness. So we've talked a little bit already about ease of use in terms of how we speak to it, how we interface with it. Say, close the shades halfway, turn on the fireplace, and listen to jazz everywhere. Those are complex commands that a system has to be smart enough, programmed well to understand. Halfway. That means 50%. We know that, but most systems don't. What does listen to jazz everywhere mean? The system has to know what jazz playlist they're going to be accessing. Is it your favorite one from Spotify? Is it your favorite one from Pandora, Tidal, etc.? And also what everywhere means, how many rooms you have access to that music. So this ability to speak to it in a more natural way and issue these more complex commands really makes it easier to use and more accessible for people. Another good example here, when you say, turn the volume up a little, turn the volume up a lot. These are commands that are not, they're going to vary depending on the person. And it requires some artificial intelligence, some machine learning in order to understand what that means for each user of the system, not just in a specific home, but all the users. And the Josh system is going to learn what you mean by a lot, a little, or some. So I'm really happy that Josh agreed to help with this presentation, because they're open to this idea that their system can be really useful for assistive technology. And when you look at this slide here, look at the touch ring turns purple. It adapts to the music. The blue understands that it's controlling shades. So this kind of programming, color coding, can be really useful for people who have hearing impairment or who are deaf, when you do closed captioning or text messaging, I think it's going to be a great feature for Josh to add, to be able to color code the text messages that you send to it, so that somebody who can't necessarily hear the system is going to know, okay, this user is listening to music, or this user is opening the blinds. So when that closed captioning can be color coded, it's going to be super useful. Room location and room awareness is, again, something that is not often seen in an automation system. And because of the Josh architecture, there's a microphone usually in every room. And this is an example of a Josh micro. They do have a smaller one that we'll show as well. And that means that when you walk into a given room, Josh knows what room you're in. You don't have to go and pick, okay, I want family room and I want to watch cable TV. It knows you're in that room already, so you can just say cable TV and it's going to turn on the TV in that room, or it's going to close the drapes in that room, whatever it is that you want to do. This really ties into the ease of use feature. And I want to show you this video, which gives an example of that, of what scheduled commands and room sensing, how much easier it makes it. There's less button presses, there's less possibility for confusion, and it just includes, it helps simplify the experience for more people.
Hey guys, just want to show you scheduled commands with Josh real quick. This is Josh AI that we're looking at. Right now we've got the lights off, so I can say, okay Josh, turn on the lights in 5 seconds. I'll do that in 5 seconds. So we'll kind of watch for these. We'll see them turn on in about 5 seconds. There they go. Lights turning on. Doing the TV as well. So we can say, okay Josh, turn on the TV in 10 seconds. I'll do that in 10 seconds. TV is off. Let it count up to 10 seconds. You can always say in 10 minutes, 10 hours, at 10 o'clock. You can say at sunrise or sunset. A lot of ways that you can do this. And if the TV goes on, works with music as well. You can say, okay, Josh, play the Beatles in 5 seconds. I'll do that in 5 seconds. In about 5 seconds, and we'll hear the Beatles through these ceiling speakers. There it goes. And Josh is also room aware, so I can come into this other room and give kind of the same command. Okay, Josh, turn on the lights in 5 seconds. I'll do that in 5 seconds. So in 5 seconds, we'll hear it go on, or see it go on. There it goes. We can do it with shades as well. Okay, Josh, open the shades in 10 seconds. I'll do that in 10 seconds. Josh, again, it's room aware, so it knows just the shades in this room, or I guess the drapes. So we get to about 10 seconds. We'll see these guys open up. There they go. And last, in case you're not familiar with Josh, you can always get multiple commands or compound commands. So we've got the TV on, music on, lights on. Okay, Josh, turn off the TV, stop the music, and turn off the lights. Easy songs. The dish lights are out. There you go. So that's Josh with scheduled commands. Thanks, guys.
Okay, so we have an interesting video there. We saw that idea of room sensing. We saw the notion of just being able to schedule your commands to do something at a certain point in time. We also tied in with that is that ability to do announcements, paging features. Okay, announce everywhere that breakfast is ready. I can see this being super useful for families, not have to walk all the way to the rooms, figure out where your kids are, figure out where grandma or grandpa are, and just say, hey guys, breakfast is ready, come on down. It's something that, again, just it's simplifying the experience, and it includes everybody. when you get into universal design and you understand that the best products, typically, not always, but typically, they don't call specific attention to a person's limitations or disability. They're usable by everybody, and they accommodate the whole gamut or a wider gamut of abilities. This is definitely a system that does that. One thing that we haven't talked about, which is important, and this is just whenever you're designing an automation system or putting it in, remember that privacy matters. Josh AI is big into privacy. You can turn off all the microphones at the touch of a button. They do give you plenty of control as to what information goes into the machine learning with the voice and what stays local. This is just really important general point that I want to make for all technology. So I like to recap what we've learned and what we've seen. Voice does have the potential to enable more people to feel comfortable using a technology. When it's done correctly, it's easier for people to engage with it. They're just saying, I want to watch Game of Thrones season 2, and the system will be able to turn on the TV, go to Netflix or HBO, and pick up Game of Thrones season 2. It promotes independence. So a friend of mine is a realtor down here in South Florida, and he is quadriplegic, and he talks extensively about how technology, his voice control platform, some of his computer software has given him the ability to live so much more independently. He can turn down his air conditioning at night. He can see who's at the front door. He can open his garage door when he's on the way out. He can use his eye motions and blinking to pretty much use a computer the way he wants to. It really helps a wider range of people live more independently and empower them to do so. And then third, privacy, which is just a general rule for all technology. I want to show this slide because we haven't talked about it too much, but you see on the wall back there is the smaller Josh microphone, the Nano, and that can be custom painted. It comes in various finishes so that it can blend into the environment. And also, as we dive deeper into not just using voice, but look at how simple and elegant the design is of the app. You see really important information on the left there of the house. It tells you what your current air quality is, what lights are on in the house, where there's music playing, that 3 thermostats are currently running. This is all useful information to be able to manage, to control, to change in an interface that's very elegant and easy to use. You can, just change on the iPhone there. You can see that just the pause button is right there for the office Sonos. You have your scene set up. We talked about earlier an example of what a good night scene might look like. These are all things, the scenes that you can customize yourself as a user. And the text messaging again. So the Josh experience is really focused on this idea of beautiful design, remote access. So whether you're at home, whether you're away, the office, whether you're traveling, as long as you have a cell phone signal or Wi-Fi, you're going to be able to access your home, and it's going to look and feel the same as though you were in the home. It's capable of managing multiple properties. We have the voice command feature that we've talked about extensively, text commands, scene configurations, and room sensing. All of these things empower a greater range of people to feel comfortable with the technology, to gain more independence, and they're not calling out, this type of impairment or this type of difficulty that this person has. It's simply accessible to a greater range of people. I want to close the presentation with what I would like to see and what I do see coming in the future of the home in terms of home automation and assistive technology. More dynamic user interfaces. What I mean by that is more customization for the user and more feedback as to what's actually going on in the home. So for example, if a user only wants to see the lights, they can just see the lights, or if something gets triggered in the home, it's going to alert them, and it's going to do so accurately without, right now it's you tend to get too many alerts when you do things like that. More advanced sensors is one that's really lacking in the home automation space right now. Haptic feedback, for example, which is if you've ever played a video game and you've felt the controller rumbling, that's a kind of a crude haptic feedback system. There's a physical sensation based on something that's happening on the screen. Haptic feedback has the potential to do a lot of things, whether it comes from waving your hand in the air in a certain pattern, maybe a circle, a triangle, or just going from left to right. It can do a whole bunch of things in that room. You think of Iron Man and Tony Stark in that movie, you get a good idea of that gesture control. For people who have low vision, there are haptic feedback sensors right now that can be integrated into the walls that will buzz as you're getting close to that boundary. And so again, it's a useful piece of technology that is not being integrated into home automation systems right now. Artificial intelligence and machine learning is just making it even easier, making our preferences more accurate, and learning the things that we want and don't want from the systems. All these things are definitely coming. Something that isn't on the slide, but is also important, is robotics. Robotics have the opportunity to make our lives a lot easier, especially an example that I'm thinking of is if there are certain wheelchair users who need help transferring from a bed to their wheelchair, or from their wheelchair to a toilet or to shower. Having the ability of robotics to assist in that and not rely on a human being is going to be incredibly empowering, and is also something that a home automation system should be able to interface with and help. For example, if your father, for example, is using this robot to transfer, having a home automation system where you can actually monitor that as a son, daughter, brother, etc., and see what's going on better could be a really helpful thing. I hope you found this presentation informative, enjoyable, and interesting. Closing remarks is, again, assistive technology and home automation. It's a very synergistic match, and we have the ability now to use products that are beautifully designed, that aren't just specifically made for someone with a disability, to empower more users, people with a disability, people who are aging, people who aren't comfortable with technology, without calling out or singling out those disabilities. And also this idea of universal design is so important. We have to, it's going to be so monumental to think of universal design to help product developments, to make better products so that more people can live independently. Thank you so much for listening. I'm looking forward to answering your questions.